Hey, my name's Ted, and I just wanted to give you a quick video on my Hyperlite bag, the gear that goes in it. I want to stress test it, talk about some things that I did when I was out in Big Cypress Swamp camping this week. And hey, I'm not an expert. I don't make any claim to being an expert. I don't make any claim that anything that I say comes from the mind of greatness. These are just my opinions based on my education, my experience, and my background. I've been hiking for most of my life. I'm not a super long distance hiker. I'm not a through hiker. I'm not that guy. I'm just a casual backpacker, and I wanted to share some ideas with you, the community. Hopefully, if you're starting out in backpacking, if you're thinking about backpacking, or perhaps you're even an experienced backpacker, we can share with each other. If you are an expert and you see something in here that you want to comment on, please do, because I learn from you guys. When you leave comments, I will learn from that. So if I say something or you see something, you want to call me out on that, please do. I'm a teacher and I'm all about learning, so please share your thoughts and opinions with me. Hey, so I just got back from a New Year's Day hike in Big Cypress National Preserve, and while I was out there, I was on the Florida National Scenic Trail for the most part, but I did take about an hour and do some bushwhacking. I went off trail. I knew where I was. I had my Onyx app, so there was an old trail that was marked as kind of a side trail. I saw no sign of that trail. What I did find, however, is that I was walking through Cypress Swamp, fallen trees, roots, cypress knees, all kinds of stuff, walking through grass, plants, so it was kind of fun. It was pretty cool. But of course, the one question that comes to mind while I'm doing that is, what happens if I fall down? Now, I do use hiking sticks for balance and propulsion. But again, if you're going to fall, I want to know what's going to happen. So today, I decided to go ahead and put the Hyperlite Southwest 55 through a stress test and find out exactly what would happen if I did happen to fall in the water. So I started out by emptying out the Hyperlite Southwest 55, took everything out of the inside, took everything off the inside, and inside I put 2 clean packing blankets to simulate a full load. Emptied out the pockets, took everything off the straps, and then I put it in the bathtub and started to fill it up. Copper was very interested in as to what was going on here, Mr. Ted. I put a couple of weights on top of the bag to hopefully hold it down. Didn't ultimately work. Let the water fill up. Good way to clean the bag, the outside at least. We'll find out what's going on the inside. While I was doing this, I thought I'd go ahead and test one of the shoulder bags as well. Now, Hyperlite does not make any claim that any of this stuff is waterproof. It is not designed for this purpose. It is water resistant, it is weather resistant, but I wanted to find out, just out of curiosity, what would happen if I slipped and fell in the water. And let's say, for example, my shoulder strap got caught on a branch and I pushed it, against the branch. So we'll go ahead and put the shoulder bag in the water and just let it float. Got it down underneath there, and I noticed right away there was some bubbles coming up from the middle, and I was curious if that was a hole in the bag. But looking under the mesh, the bubbles were not coming from the bag itself. It was just bubbling through the mesh outer part there, and which is good. That's fine. There were no bubbles coming from the zipper. It wasn't bubbling, so let's go ahead and squeeze it. Squeeze all the air out. Like I said, just what would happen if you fell and you landed with that shoulder bag on a branch, for example. Give that a minute underneath there. Let that set. Again, this is way beyond anything that this is designed for, so I'm just being curious. Once the water filled up, the bag got really buoyant. It did not want to stay under the water at all, even with those weights on there. You can see I'm really struggling to keep those things balanced. So eventually I'm going to get rid of them. But for now, we'll just see if we can't just keep that thing balanced in the water. Okay, now it's time to simulate some struggling. Oh no, you've fallen and you're tumbling and you're in the water. Now, I'm not trying to minimize this. It is a danger, but I just was curious as to what would happen should you roll over, which where I was hiking was, a possibility. Want to get that bag off as quickly as possible because as you can see, it's very buoyant. And I don't want to be face down in the water with the buoyant bag on my back. So I did a little tiny little bit of scuba diving a long time ago, and I know how to quickly get out of that. It's only 2 clips and then roll out of the bag and be done. But and then simulated some roughing around in the water. What's going to happen on the inside if you're moving around or the water's moving around. Didn't notice any apparent bubbling from any of the seams. The seams were all very well made, seam sealed, very tightly stitched, double wrapped, probably triple wrapped, quad wrapped, I don't know. But, there was no apparent bubbling coming through. And now it's time to open up that bag and see what's on the inside. So I'm going to use a towel to dry the top of the bag off because I want to keep anything that's on the outside and just see what got into the bag without any extra coming in from the outside. Okay, the hip pockets did have water in them, and I expected that. Those are designed to be rain resistant. They're not waterproof. There was water in there, which is fine because everything that's in those hip pockets is either wrapped up or it's a water filter and a water bag anyway, so that's okay. And then taking a look on the inside, sorry I didn't get a better angle on this. It was a little bit of a tight space working in the bathroom area there. But as I began to pull the blankets out, there was a little bit of moisture at the top of the bag. Not a ton. It wasn't saturated at all. I was actually really surprised kind of with how dry that blanket actually was. You can see there's some moisture up there. So it's a good thing to use those interior stuff sacks. It's not super wet. And then the blanket at the bottom, there's some moisture. It's going to come in through where the straps are sewn to the side of the bag. And that's expected. A little bit of moisture on the bottom. I did dump out the excess moisture into the bathtub, and it's not a huge amount. I mean, that's okay. That's fine. So that, of course, begged the question, well, what happens to the stuff sack with your down sleeping bag that's sitting in the bottom of all of that? So the shoulder pack was, of course, saturated. I mean, I squeezed down there pretty hard, so the towel that was inside got saturated with the water. Like I pushed it. That's not supposed to be how that's used, way beyond use case. But again, I was just curious, and it's a good opportunity to clean those bags out. And then let's toss the socks in and let the socks rinse for a little bit. Needless to say, Copper really enjoyed all of this part. So I use a Big Agnes 20-degree down bag, Sidewinder 20-degree down, and I keep it in this Hyperlite stuff sack to keep it dry inside the bag. And I wanted to find out what would happen. So I put the stuff sack with a towel in it. This is not my down bag inside. Just put a towel in it, and I put it in the tub and held it there to simulate sitting in the bottom of a wet pack for a little bit. There were no apparent bubbling along the seams. Again, the seams held really, really well. Really impressed with the quality of construction. And just let that sit there for a bit, see what would happen. And honestly, when I took the towel out, not a whole lot happened. There were a couple of little wet spots on the towel. Nothing major, nothing I'd be concerned about, nothing inside the bag. There was no standing water in the bag. Just a couple little wet spots. That's okay. I can take a hot Nalgene bottle and put it in the footwell of my sleeping bag, and it'll dry that down bag out pretty quickly. I've done that before. but it was not saturated. So I decided to go ahead and let's do the full stress test, wrap it back up, put it back in that tent, back in the tub. And let's just see. Again, this is not the design of this bag. This is not the use case of this bag. But while we've got the tub filled, let's just see what would happen with a full immersion, given a little bit of pressure. Let it sit there for a minute. And after letting it sit for a little bit, I opened up the bag, took the towel out, and it was surprisingly not bad. Yeah, there were some wet spots. There was definitely moisture in there, but that's well beyond the design limits of the bag. And again, the towel's not saturated. There's just some wet spots that I would have no worries about drying out with a hot Nalgene bottle, or even just letting it air dry, depending on the circumstances. So super impressed with these products. So a couple of lessons learned from just putting that backpack in the bathtub, weighting it down, holding it down, submerging it, pushing it down, all those kinds of things. It is buoyant. It is buoyant. If I fell, which is possibility and probability, possibility of falling in water is always there. Anytime you're in water that's over ankle deep, there's always a possibility for falling in the water, so you want to be prepared for that. Probability of falling depends on conditions, your skills, your condition, lots of different things. So my probability of falling in Big Cypress was low, but it was not zero. First lesson I learned, if I do fall in water with that, I want that backpack off immediately, because it is so buoyant that it's going to flip me over and it's going to want to float, which is going to put me face down in the water. So that thing's going to want to come off right away. As you saw, I held that thing under the water. I pushed it under the water. I squeezed it. I did all kinds of things. Hyperlite does not make any claim whatsoever that their bag is completely waterproof. That is not the intention of the bag. It's water resistant. But in a worst case scenario, I needed to know, what could I expect? And what I found out was that double wrapped, my sleeping bag is going to stay dry. You saw me stress test the bag that I put my sleeping bag in, and you saw me stress test the backpack that bag would be in, so it's double wrapped. There might be some water that gets through to the backpack. That would be my biggest concern. Hypothermia, I want to be in that pack as fast as possible. I have learned that if I just take my Nalgene, don't have my Nalgene handy, if I take my Nalgene, boil a liter of water, put it in the Nalgene, throw it in the bottom of my backpack, that will, it will warm me up, but it will also dry that bag out fairly quickly. So I know that I've got protection, and I have a couple of different strategies. Obviously, if I fall in water, get wet, I don't want to get hypothermia, so I'm going to change. I've got backup clothes in the stuff sack. I have a way of drying things out. I can boil that water, put it in a Nalgene. That's why I use a Nalgene and not a smart water bottle. I wouldn't trust boiling water in a smart water bottle. I have done it many times in a Nalgene, and it makes a great hot water bottle. So overall, I'm extremely impressed. The bag stayed, for the most part, dry. It wasn't waterproof, and nobody expects that, and I did not expect it. But you saw the stress that I put it under in the bathtub, and I am really impressed by the results. So I can be pretty confident now the next time I'm out hiking, know what to expect and how to prepare and what to do in case of. I'm wearing a cotton t-shirt now, which I never do when I'm hiking. I always use synthetics so that they will dry quickly. In fact, at one point I jumped into the cypress swamp and took a little bath to cool off a little bit, and I was dry within half an hour or so, and I never felt chilled or chilly except for that initial splash. That's refreshing. Alright, so I'm going to start with the ditty bag. This is a hip pack from Hyperlite. This goes around my waist, and in there I'm going to put my headlamp, lead laser headlamp, an extra flashlight, 2 lighters, toothbrush, toothpaste. For a toothbrush, I just use the head to my electric toothbrush. That's going to go in there. My wallet will go in here, and then my ear pods in the case. And that is my ditty bag. These are things that I'm going to need to get to throughout the day and when I get to camp. I'm going to set that to the side. I've got my pocket knife, which I always carry with me. That goes in the pocket, so I'm not going to include that. I've got 2 shoulder packs from Hyperlite. Those carry things like snacks, batteries for the phone, batteries for the camera, any accessories that I might have with me. I'm not going to include any of my food in my base weight because food, fuel, and water are not included in base. So I'm going to set those to the side. For clothing, this time of year I'm going to carry my Patagonia Puffy with me. That's going to go in the clothing bag. I also carry a Smart Wool long sleeve shirt, dry pair of Smart Wool underwear, and a hat, beanie, and for those mornings when it's in the 40s or low 50s, those are going to get packed inside the clothing bag as well. Normally I'd stick my dry socks in there, but right now the dry socks are soaking, so we're not going to include that, but socks don't weigh very much anyway. Let's go ahead and get that down, pack that up. That's ready to go in the bag. I've got my Cascade hiking sticks. Keep those on the side. I'm not going to include that in base weight. Then I've got my Ursack food bag, my stove, my spork. Here's some food. I'm not going to include that, and I'm not going to include the fuel. I keep my stove top, MSR Pocket Rocket, inside my GSI boiler. That's going to go in the food bag along with the spoon. I'm not going to put any food in there. And let's put the bear line in there as well. This contains my hanging line as well as some extra cordage just in case. So that's going to go in there. Set that over to the side. We've got a handsaw. Always handy to have. Garmin GPS, the scale to weigh everything with. Let's put this over here. Medical kit and my sitting pad. Now let's start packing the bag. First 2 things that are going to go in are the sleeping bag and a Hyperlite bag, and then the Hyperlite Mid-1 tent. Put those down on the bottom. Saw is going to go in the mesh pocket that's inside so that it's held kind of safe. And where did I put the tent stakes? Are also going to go in that mesh pocket on the inside. That way they're out of the way. Then I've got 2 inflatable pillows. I've got a Thermarest. And I've got a Sea Summit. A little bougie, I know. But sleeping comfort is a thing. Nemo Tensor sleeping pad. Let's see if we can... Nope, I'm going to fit that, so let's put that right there. Stuff sack with all the clothes, Sea Summit stuff sack for all the clothes. Put that there. Food bag, which doesn't have any food in it. It's just got the stove, the pot, and the spoon. Med kit. And that is everything that goes on the inside of the bag. fuel and tuck. And clip that down. Sitting pad's going to go on the outside. And just for purposes of weight, I'm going to put this on the inside, although obviously that's going to go around my hips when I'm on trail. Flip that over. We're going to throw, I put both of these external bags on the right side, on the right strap, and the reason for that is I've got a camera clip for my camera that sits on this strap, and it just works out better having both of these shoulder clips, shoulder bags on one side, and that way I'm not fighting with one as I'm working with my camera. And again, these bags will include things like extra batteries. I usually keep a lighter in there, some of those snacks. We're not going to put anything in there now because we're just trying to get base weight. On the hip pack is going to go my Sawyer squeeze and the CNOC bag. That always goes on the right side, so it's always readily available, ready to go. I know where it is, don't have to think about it. Left side's going to be my hydration pocket. That's going to be all my electrolytes, trail food, those kinds of things, stuff that I want to get to while I'm hiking. And I believe that is it. That's everything. Nope, one more thing, the buff. Always carry an extra buff, just in case, you never know. And I keep that strapped to the front. All right, now let's throw it on the scale. All right, so we've got the pag loaded out. No food, no fuel, no water. Pretty much everything that we would need. Hook that on there, hold it up. Oh, oh, I am liking that. I am liking that. Holy smokes. Yeah. That's a win. 14.96 pounds, less than 15 pounds total pack weight. That's unbelievable. Throw some food in there. Say 2 pounds for food. I carry 2 liters of water, so that's 4 pounds of water. Slightly over 4 pounds of water, so we're 2, 4, 5 pounds for food and water, 16 ounces for fuel, 6, 15, 21 pounds, full load, food, fuel, and water, 21 pounds approximately, depending on the trip. Oh my goodness, the first hike I took, I was at 65 pounds total weight. That's crazy. Now, I'm not including camera weight in that. Camera weight does add substantially to that. But even, let's say, max load, everything, camera, tripod, batteries, still under 10 pounds for all of that. I'm still at 35 pounds total with camera, with everything, 35 pounds. And I'm happy hiking with that. You know, 20% of body weight, and I weigh about 200 pounds, so 60 pounds, and I'm carrying max load out 35 pounds. I'm happy. Woo! Overall, super impressed. Love the pack weight, love the setup. That's my basic kit for 2025, and now I know what I can expect. If this is your first time visiting, again, my name is Ted. Go ahead and hit subscribe so that you know of new stuff that I've got coming out. I've got some great content coming up. Please feel free to share. That always helps. Please comment. That helps. I want to grow this channel and grow this community. So let's dive into it, literally.